Are social media apps deliberately designed to be addictive? That is one of the things being asked at the heart of a landmark jury trial that is happening right now in the U.S. So yesterday, if you've been following this, the court heard from Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg facing questions about his efforts to get users to spend more time on his platforms and the potential harm that poses for young people. Carmi Levy's here to start the show, technology journalist and analyst. Good morning.
Be with you.
We're always great to have you on. So what stands out from you from what Zuckerberg had to say about this yesterday?
I think what sticks in my mind is how unremarkable his testimony was, that we've literally heard all of this before. He's testified in front of Congress and said the same thing, that there is no correlation between social media and mental health outcomes, that social media is not addictive in the medical sense, that the all that internal evidence that is being shared in the trial, the emails, the meeting transcripts, the text messages that show executives knew that this was addictive. They were actually being tracked. That those were the metrics. Get people addicted to it. It's by design. That he's saying they were mischaracterized, that they were taken out of context. And so it's Mark Zuckerberg being Mark Zuckerberg every time he has an opportunity to step up and take accountability for the downstream impacts of these social media platforms. He refuses to do so. And unfortunately, in this case, yet another example of that.
It's an interesting case also because obviously the goal would be to have people stay on your platform for longer. There's no denying that. That's the goal of any business, frankly, if you have a platform like that. But it's about the addictive quality of them, correct? So
Exactly.
yeah, so I'm just wondering, the plaintiff, now a 20-year-old woman identified only as KGM here, says her early social media use caused her to be addicted, made her mental health struggles worse. What will be the big challenge for lawyers representing her then to prove that addictive quality?
It's proving that was the only trigger, that was the only root cause for her subsequent mental health challenges. And we know that mental health is obviously a very complex issue with multiple factors, multiple potential triggers. And so legally to prove that it was only that she only used social media and nothing else, and that no other factors were in play here, is a very difficult thing to prove anywhere, let alone in court. And so the lawyers for the technology companies are saying that they have health records that show she was already in a challenging life situation. She had a difficult childhood, and she was experiencing mental health challenges even before she started using social media at a very young age. And so this is going to be a really early test for the legal community to prove that big tech is responsible in this way. And one way or the other, it will either set the precedent or it won't.
We do have other cases here. TikTok and Snapchat did settle with plaintiffs. Meta and Google have not. What's at stake for them, do you think?
I mean, whether you settled or not, everything is at stake, because the very future of the way the industry works, the way it designs its products, the way it markets itself to its users, particularly young users, the engagement levels on the platform that ultimately determine how much revenue they can generate from it. That is ultimately what is at stake here. And so, Snap and TikTok were hoping that while everyone is focused on this initial case, this incredibly precedent-setting case, that they would avoid having all of that dirty laundry, all of those internal documentation examples shared publicly, and they didn't want to look bad in that process. And they're hoping they're still going to be on the stand for all those other cases. The hope is that by the time they get to that point, we will all have moved on to something else, and we won't be paying as much attention to those cases as we are to this one. But in the end, they're still as accountable as everyone else, and they're still facing down the same sort of existential barrel of a gun that both Meta and Google are facing in this initial trial.
You and I have talked about this before. You've compared it to what tobacco and alcohol went through, and then ultimately we have warning labels on packages and such. If Meta wins the court case, is there anything else that might force the company or any of the social media companies we're talking about this morning to change their behavior?
Yeah, the only thing that's going to ever force them to change their ways is legislation. We need tougher laws that impose standards for consumer product design, for removing addictiveness from the fundamental design, and forcing them to go to market in a way that's somewhat more sustainable and balanced and doesn't cause this kind of impact on customers. The automotive industry can't sell a car in Canada without adhering to a very significant list of safety standards, things that have to be on a car before anybody can put it on the road. And so other industries have been subject to this kind of legislation before, which has curbed some of those excesses that we've seen. And I think the technology industry is on the verge of that kind of moment of reckoning as well. And I think many of us would agree it's about 15 to 20 years overdue.
All right, Carmi, thank you as always. Appreciate it.
Great being with you. Thanks so much, Marcy.
Carmi Levy is a technology journalist and analyst.